I just have to make sure that something was taught well. So ready? Ready? No Italian Mamma Mia version. Dance with me. Whoa, 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 whoa. Now, everyone say me, e. Me. Good. No mio. Dance with me. Oh yeah. My soul. Romance. Italian version. Was it you?
I like your version better because the other version, when it says romance video, it sounds like Roman Speedo.
Roman Speedo. Wow. That would be scary. You're at the pool, you're having a good time. Yeah. And then Tony shows up with the Roman Speedo. Yeah, that's... I don't know if I'll ever sing that song again now.
I can never listen to this song again without laughing now.
Get it out of my brain. Do I do a countdown now? Or have we already been on tape? Or who knows? Oh, you're the man. You're the guy. Are we doing a countdown today? No, we're going? Oh, well, hi there. Well, good. Did we just do Roman Speedo on live? Oh, isn't that great? Oh, that's lovely. That's so nice to know. Hello in Europe? Sorry? We just like longer trunks here. All right. This is going to be, that one's, okay. So sorry. So sorry. I really don't care. It doesn't matter. I leave here tomorrow anyway. So this is day 3 of 4 days. How are we all doing? Is God, my prayer is that he's doing, there's something corporate goes on, but when something happens individually, and then that individual thing happens on a corporate basis, then that's where things change. So I just want, is anything further going on in your hearts? What further would you want to add to what God's speaking or encouraging something in your heart with, or something just made sense, or it went deeper, or I'm more confused now, let me go home? What are you thinking, feeling?
For me, it's like God's love is going much deeper. And just, you can know for years, like in theory, that God loves you. But this is something which is really going deep into my heart, and I can feel the difference. And I think it's helping me to accept more of God's love as well. Because a while ago, I can't remember who it was, one of the speakers was talking about you need to, if you increase the size of your heart, then you can receive what God really has for you, because he wants to give you more than you would actually accept or hope or dream of. So I feel like through this, God is increasing my heart so I can receive more blessing, and I hope that's the same for lots of other people too.
I just feel closer to God right now. I think, there's a period of time there where you sort of feel close and then you ebb away and come back. And just through discussing who he is and what an amazing dad he is, and his love for us just opens you up again to just feeling closer and wanting to run into his arms and have that friendship with him again. So.
I definitely feel the love of God a lot more than I have ever felt before. And I'm seeing God as being perfect, as something that's not scary anymore. Because I used to see him as perfect, and it was kind of terrifying. But now it's amazing.
He's perfect in love. That's the sweet thing we got to know. He's perfect with his mercy. And anybody else? Yeah.
I just find that, like, I feel like I'm more accepted by God and stuff, because I found that before, and, like, this is, like, a thing that God's been working on, like, this whole time at this school, just that I always felt like I had to be at a certain place before I could come to God or talk to God, but I feel like I just feel like God just loves me for who I am, and he's just, like, he just wants to work with me where I am, so that's really good.
Anybody else? Yes.
Well, I had actually when you were sharing about the war and stuff, there was so much stuff stirring up inside of me because of all a lot of stuff that's going on in my family. And for me, it was a lot of healing that I received through what you shared, and focusing God, and just be able to look at him and to say to him, well, that's actually what I want from you, how I wanted to experience you. So that started the healing process inside of me.
Awesome. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Where are you from, Virginia? Germany. Wow. Okay. The Germany. Say it again. No, sorry. Germany. I want to share this one. We're going to end, just to let you know, I know some of you are going, wait a minute, what if Chris talks till 12:23 or 12:33, and we have a picture at 12:30, and what if I cry during the time this morning? I got to have some time. So knowing that, having 3 daughters, I'm going to end at noon, as close to noon as possible, so that you guys get some time to primp and look really good. Now, not that you don't. You look great. But I know that nobody wants to run to something, especially with a big wind, and you might actually want to do some primping on that side after the wind. See? I know. So, is that cool? Okay. Now, some of you requested 11 o'clock, but I just don't think you need it. So, there we go. Turn to 2 Corinthians. It's right after 1 Corinthians. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Now, if you're really in sync with God, you'll be on page 1016. Is anybody on page 1016? 2 Corinthians chapter 3. Yeah. 16:10. Well, you got all the numbers. That works. No, it's 2 Corinthians chapter 3. Now, before, I was, you know what? I'm going to actually do this horrible thing that people sometimes do. You can just set your finger there for a second. Because I think there's a story I want to share, but I thought about sharing it later, but I'm looking at the context of what this is, and I think I need to share it now. Actually, no, I'll share it on top of this, and we'll go here. I know. You're looking going, why didn't you plan this out better? The end of 2 Corinthians 3, it describes the glory of the new covenant. We have this new relationship. And Jesus is talking in Luke 16:16, and he says that the law and the prophets were until John. And since John, we preach the kingdom. So all the Old Testament, all the law and all the prophets ended with John the Baptist. So John the Baptist is actually, though he's a New Testament person in terms of name coming into the New Testament. In terms of covenant, he's the last person in the Old Covenant. And after that, that's why John says, I need to decrease so that you increase. He's not talking about, I need to become a little person and so that God's big. What he's saying is, I, representing the Old Covenant, have to die out and go away so that the New Covenant, Jesus, as the preeminent one, comes through. All right, does that make sense? All right. So the whole aspect of what is a new covenant, this is the glory of the new covenant. What makes the new covenant so wonderful? And you guys just take it for granted. Well, I was born in, the end of the 20th century, and Christianity's been around for 2,000 years, so I'm just a new covenant guy. And I'm a new covenant woman. It's just the time I was born, and that's the way it is. And part of me wants to say, yes, you're right. The problem is that when you're born sometimes to an alcoholic family, alcoholism is around you, and it's something you battle with. When you're born into a rich home, you don't even understand where the money comes from. Sometimes you just take for granted. When you're born into poverty, often if it's just low money but not a spirit of poverty. My mother raised 3 kids on $3,000 a year. We had very little money, and she was amazing with $1, what she could do with it. So I didn't even know that we were quote unquote poor. I didn't know that because I never felt that way. She always was able to get clothes somewhere and this or that. And we lived in this little house. I found out years later she had a 30-year mortgage for the house. The house she negotiated down to $9,000 for a house over 30-year payment. Now that's a used car nowadays. And so she was able to get his mortgage payment really tiny, and we always had food, and she was a great cook, and we always had clothes. So I didn't even know that we're what? One of my buddies told me, man, what's it like to be poor? I don't know. I'm not poor. Oh, no, I heard it. Oh. And it turned out that my mom's attorney had some children who he made a comment to that she was below the poverty level or whatever, and they took that and let me know that I was poor. Well, I didn't feel poor. I never felt poor a day in my life. We just didn't have some things that others had, but it was no big deal because we had a whole lot of love, and we had just normal. And so sometimes we get into the kingdom, the new covenant, and we just take for granted what we have. And Paul's trying to tell the church at Corinth the glories of the new covenant, and he's trying to put it in a way of how do you get it so that it really sticks in your heart that this great thing has happened. And the only way he can describe it, and the only way he can talk about it, is not all the good things you get from it, but it's what the whole Old Testament shoots and points at. And the whole thing, everything points at Jesus, and that's what it's for. And we can go into great detail about that, but that's not what I'm here this morning for. But Paul's trying to get them to say, if you really want to understand this whole new covenant thing, you've got to understand the person of Jesus looking at you. You have to understand how he sees you. Because Moses went up to the mountain, and that's what it talks about here. And Moses said, I want to see you, God. God said, well, you'll die, kind of, and I want to see you. He says, well, this is what we'll do. We'll put you in here, you turn your back, I'll put my hand, there'll be a shadow, and you'll see me go by on my back. It's like, okay, I'll take whatever you got. And Moses comes down from the mountain with the glory of the Lord on him so much that he had to literally put a veil over himself because he was so bright that it was just, whoa. I can't imagine. I mean, that's a real thing that happened. He was so bright that he had to veil himself so as not to hurt the eyes of other people. And so that's how he wants to rest on us. That's the kind of glory I'm talking about where you exude his life and people actually can see it in you. Then it's not what you know, it's how you project Jesus that shows the kingdom in you. Does that make sense? So therefore, Paul makes this grand statement at the end of 2 Corinthians 3, which is really amazing. Even to this day, verse 15, when Moses is read, a veil lies on their heart. Talking about the Jewish people. Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. That is one of those verses that I've heard people read over the years, and they read it like Braveheart. They read it like, when he's riding up and down on the horse in front of all the guys, and he's saying, Sons of Scotland. And he goes into this whole big thing, and there's a moment in the movie when everything changes. And the guy that was there and standing, you want to be the guy in the front row with a sword, but most of us really feel like the guy in the 6th row with the rusted, little garden hoe. Hi, And he's up there trying to go, Sons of God, come forth. And I don't want to fight. Because there's you're a son, you're a daughter, but you don't know if you're going to win the battle. Because then you really don't know. If you don't know you're going to win the battle, then you really don't know who you are. And so he's up there trying to call them out. In this verse, now where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. And I've heard that verse, and I've heard it championed, and people shouting. Back in 95 when Braveheart came out, we were doing these conferences in Kansas City. And I just remember after Braveheart, the first conference after Braveheart, this whole group of guys walked in, and I'm standing up here, and this group of guys walk in during rehearsal, and they're coming in to get their seat early or whatever, and there's about 5 or 6 of them, and they have their face half painted blue, and they've got kilts on, and they've got swords. And so the first time they were there, they're swinging their swords. We had to have the ushers actually get them and say, I'm sorry you can't swing your swords in here. If you kill someone, that's a legal issue. And so so we had to have them drop their swords by the door. So somebody and then would take their swords, put them in the bookstore, and then after the conference that day, they could come and get their swords again. It was really kind of funny. And so they really did. They had their face painted half blue, and they're up and around, where the Spirit of the Lord is. And then, Dave Roos, who is one of the other worship leaders at this particular conference, he yells out, freedom! And everybody screams, freedom! And it was like, oh, wow. It's the Braveheart. It's post-Braveheart time. When you yell freedom, everybody screams freedom. So that was a real easy one for worship leaders. You just go into a conference in 95 and 96, and you go, freedom! And then 5 or 10,000 people yell, freedom! And it's kind of a rush. It's kind of fun. But that's freedom to what? Freedom unto what? Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. There's liberty for what? I'm now free to, you're now free to move around the country. Southwest Airlines. You're free to something. Okay? Freedom is to be, you're not just free to, freedom is unto something. All right? So the Spirit of the Lord, it says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, the Spirit of the Lord comes to you and is here to give you liberty. To give you liberty for what? It's in the next verse. But now we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. So the Spirit of the Lord is there to do this. To behold, if I were to put this mirror right up here, if you had a mirror, put your hand out like that. I know you're looking at your hand, but just kind of look at that. You're looking at his face in front of you. All right? All right. Now, you're not really not looking at his face, but I just wanted you to have that image, visual image right there, that there's something in front of you, and you're looking at him, and you're looking at his face. And that's why I said, what do you see about his face? How does his face look back to you? Because look at this verse, please, one more time, verse 18. Tell me something. I'm going to say something in this verse, and I want to see if it jumps off the page for you, okay? Beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are transformed into the same image from glory to glory. What is it? Okay, we're looking at a mirror, the glory of the Lord. We're gazing on what we know of to be God's face, and are transformed into the same image. That's it. Did you catch that? When I see an aspect of who God is, and I begin to look into the mirror, and I go, oh, there's God. He's looking at me. There's the face of God. Okay, make it clear. Let me see that clear. Scripture says, I am transformed into the same image. So here's the thing. The image you see is the image you become. How you see God is the kind of person you become. That is so huge. You should all be running to a pen and a paper. The image you behold of God is the image you become in God. Well, how does that work out? What do you mean? What does that mean? Well, if my viewpoint of God is that he is a distant, he's a holy God, he's powerful, but he's distant and detached, you will emphasize the holiness of God in your life. You'll probably have a little spirit of judgment on other people, and you'll never know intimacy. And so you'll probably have a hard time of intimacy with people in your marriage, etc., because you don't know the intimate side of God. If you see God and you behold him and you think he's impatient, you will become an impatient person. We become what we behold. Please catch that. You become what you behold. Why is it so important to understand this face of God? Why do I keep coming back to how God, what his eyes are like towards me, what his smile is like towards me? I'll tell you why. Because I know too many people that think God is harsh and become harsh people. Or they see God as angry over sin, and these people have no patience for anybody else in their weakness. Can you go back to in your churches and the things, and I'm not trying to be critical about where you've come from, but can you see when God's presented one way that we become people of how God's presented? All right? If God's a marching God, always fighting, we become people always fighting. I'm not saying that we don't need to fight as believers and have a warfare mentality at particular times, but I tell you, I pity the woman that's married to the warrior who's a warrior all the time. Or I pity the man that's married to the warrior woman. Honey, come here, babe. No. I'm going to fight for God. And if I have to fight with you, that's okay, because it's all part of the fight. And then finally, you can only do that for so long. And then when they run out of gas, they just sin and blow it. And then they get so guilty because they don't understand grace. It's just bizarre. How do I know? Because I've seen it. I've been there. You become what you behold. That's just how it works. You become what you behold. Why is it so important why am I stressing the nature of God and the personality of God? It's because I want you to become who he is. I want you to see his kindness, his graciousness, his gentleness, his long-suffering, his meekness, his mercy. Because the world is longing for kind, godly, centered, rooted people. There's enough people out there who are unkind. All you have to do is walk out these doors. Actually, sometimes all you have to do is hang around with people that are in here. Sometimes kindness, looking for kindness, sometimes is like a treasure hunt. And when we find it, we just, why? Because that's the fruit. That's a hanging fruit of Galatians. That's a fruit of the Spirit. That's the fruit of his nature. When it says the fruit of the Spirit, it's not what we have, it's what he is. The fruit of the Spirit is not about us. The fruit of the Spirit in Galatians is about him. And then we look at that and we become that, and that fruit becomes part of our life. How do I want to be patient? I see God as patient. I become patient. How do I want to be gentle? I find the gentleness of God in the mercy of God, and I take on gentleness and mercy. So, years ago, I want to tell you two quick stories. I just got saved. I was 19, just got saved, and went to this church. And the church I went to was a charismatic church, non-denominational. It was really great. They centered on worship. I loved it. It was wonderful. Any place you go is going to have its bizarre people and bizarre theology. Maybe not bizarre, but just, it's not 100% correct, but I knew that Jesus was, and that the rest of us were just on the way. And they got me up front and they said, you've been filled with the Spirit since you've been here and since you accepted Jesus. And I said, what do you mean filled with the Spirit? Well, you speak in tongues? I said, no. Do they still do that? Oh, yeah. It didn't end 2,000 years ago. Well, really? Speak in tongues, that'd be kind of fun. I like to speak in tongues. All right, well, come on up after the service and we'll pray for you. So I came up and about 150 people gathered around me. Have you ever been prayed on by like a ton of people and they're all pushing down on you? And you're trying to stand, and they're just all praying, and they're huddled all around. And I just remember feeling very claustrophobic, and I just remember being pushed down and pushed down. I got pushed down to the part where I literally could have gone on my knees and gone between their legs, and they never would have known that I was gone. It was very funny. I almost did that, just to stand on the outside saying, hey, remember me? But I'm being prayed for, and I'm kind of slouching down like this, and they're saying, speak out, and they're singing and praying really loud over me. I'm going, what? And I'm hearing all this stuff in other languages, and I can't, and I'm going, they're saying, say anything. Anything. No. Make up, just say it, just let whatever comes out. Nothing coming out. And there's nothing. And so I went home really discouraged that night, and I took a book about the Holy Spirit, and I went on the couch, and I started reading it. The next thing I know, I'm just that's gone. And I had this dream where I'm walking down a road, and I get to a T in the road, and I look this way, and the road turns into a dirt road, and then turns into just gnarly ground, and then goes into these gnarly trees like in The Wizard of Oz. We see The Wizard of Oz when they find the apples, and the apple trees are all gnarly, and how'd you like somebody picking an apple out of you? And I look like, I don't know if I want to go there. And I look this way, and there's a beautiful white mansion, and it just looks so beautiful. And when I turn back, there's a guy standing there I hadn't seen before. This old man, he's got a sign, and it's pointing this way towards the mansion. There's literally a hand on the sign that's pointing like this, and it says Messiah. So I go, I think I want to go that way. So I go down the road, I walk in the door of the mansion, and there's no room to go into. It's just a flight of stairs in front of me. So I take the stairs up to the second floor, and I look around, and there's nothing. There's just a flight of stairs. I take the stairs to the third floor. I get to the third floor, and then there's a little area on the third floor, probably going to that wall like a circle right here. So it was a good 20 to 30 feet kind of circular thing. And then on the other side of it was a doorway. The door it probably went from the height of that that wall right there to the top of the black. And standing in front of the door was an angel with his arms crossed. So I looked at the angel, and I realized I'm on the third floor of a beautiful white mansion. God's got to be behind that. The Father's got to be behind that door. So I walked up to the angel, just monstrous guy. I looked at him and I said, is God in there? And he's got his arms crossed, and he goes, yes. Actually, he didn't say anything, he just nodded. I said, I need to go in. He goes, nope. I said, well, God's there. I need to be there. He says, if you go in there, you will die. And I said, okay. I would rather do that than live out here without him. So if you would please get out of the way, I'd appreciate it, because I want to go in there. He goes, did you hear me? I said, yes. If you go in there, you will die. I said, I know. And then he smiled and goes, okay. Kind of like that's what he was hoping I'd say. He goes, okay. And he steps to the side like this. So I go up to the door, and I go to pull the door, and you ever open most doors are like this thick. Have you ever opened a thick door? I mean, it's just, sometimes you got to work to get that open. This door was about this thick. And I started pulling it, and it's like, door, 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 door. And I'm just like, oh, man. So I'm pulling it as hard as I can. And then when I pull it this way, and I lean back, I could see the angel, and he's just kind of leaning against the wall with a smile on his face like, this is so fun, because he knows what's going to happen. So I get to the point when there's a bright light on in another room, the shaft of light comes through. And the second that shaft of light came through, it hit me physically, and it threw me back against the back wall of excuse me, the area I was in. I hit the wall, came down, woke up in my house, and began to speak in tongues. So that was my introduction into a supernatural God. It's kind of like, whoa, wow, whoa. and I didn't write any, syllables down that I heard. It wasn't memorizing. It wasn't trying to repeat something else. That they were actually trying to get me to just repeat some words. As it was just right, literally out of a deep sleep. So there was a part of me that just knew the reality of who God was and how he longed to touch me, to physically bring me further into his kingdom. It was a divine thing. So I went on this little journey with him, and was shortly thereafter, the Lord said the sentence I gave to you the other day, which was this: so, what about your father? It wasn't go do this, it wasn't go do that. It was, what about your father? And I went before the Lord, and I think that we can do this, and I want to encourage you to do this. How many of you have absolutely perfect families? Okay, how many of you have a family that is loving but imperfect? Most of you. Now, I'm not going to ask the next question because there are a number of people that have grave problems in their family. Excuse me. And I don't want to highlight that. What I want to highlight is the fact that he sees, he understands your predicament in your home, in your family, with your siblings, with your parents, without parents, with pain, with foster parents, with grandparents, with people in, parents in prison, parents that have died, parents, all those kinds of things that happen in life. He understands exactly all the pain that brought you. So I kind of pulled all of that together, and I went to the Lord one day, and I said, Lord, this is the package that I have, and I've forgiven my dad in my heart, but that's as far as I can really go. And I thought that I was doing fine. So if you want me to do more, you have to come help me. And I went to work, I worked close to where I had an apartment that was the second floor of a house. I lived with two other guys. I was not married at the time. And came home from work. It was close enough, and I always made peanut butter or not peanut butter. If we didn't have bologna, I made peanut butter and jelly. If we had bologna, I had bologna and mayonnaise every day. One or two slices of, when I grew up, it was one slice of bologna on 2 pieces of white bread and mayonnaise. That was my lunch every day. And I know, but that was my lunch every day because that's what money we had. And I didn't think twice about it. And my mother always had some little box of raisins and some carrot sticks or something. That was my lunch. And so I came home, walked in the house, slapped a piece of bologna on, put some mayonnaise on. And this particular day of the week, I usually went home on a day that the people that lived below me worked in a factory and they worked at night. And they were Christians and they had their home group at noon. So from noon to 2 o'clock on Wednesdays, they had the home group at their house because that's when all the night shift people wanted to meet. So I would go home on Wednesday. The guitar player that was down below that would lead the worship is now a major guitar player and producer in Nashville. And so a guy named Lynn, and Lynn he was off the chart, phenomenal guitar player, and just a great voice. And I would go, and back then, I don't know, maybe some of you had these kind of houses where you have these metal grates in the floor, and you can literally see the floor below you, and the heat from there rises up. All right? Does anybody have a grate like that in your house? Okay. Wow. You got modern houses now. Well, back then, I'm really sounding old. But I would stand over the grate like this, and I'd eat my bologna and mayonnaise sandwich and just enjoy the worship. So I'm standing there enjoying the worship, and suddenly there's this breeze on my face, and I'm going, oh gosh, it's winter. Man, who left the window open? So I open my eyes, and you need to understand, that dream of seeing the angel, that was a dream. I've never consciously seen an angel. I lived in Kansas City for years, and I knew this one lady, she would always be going like this, and she'd bring pen and paper, or pencil and paper to church. And finally my wife turned around and said, what are you doing? She says, he looks fascinating. She goes, oh, I'm just drawing the angels that I'm seeing. And she would see angels all the time. After I went up to lead worship, she said, did you feel this breeze on you this morning? I said, yeah, what was that? She said, I saw an angel behind you flapping its wings. And at one point in time, my papers would be, start to blow off. I was like, wow, please stop blowing the paper off, but I appreciate you being there, but I really would like to see you. Can I see you? I don't want to have to go to sleep to see an angel. I just want to see an angel. People talk about it. I had this experience, and it's like, Does anybody want to have that supernatural? Do we want to see an angel? I mean, I do. I don't think that's a bad thing. Do you hear us? I know you do. I know. I'm just saying it again. We've talked about this before. Yes, I know. Okay. Just reminded me that he's perfect and I'm not. So I'm standing there, and suddenly I open my eyes, and I am not in my apartment. I'm on a hillside. And I'm going, okay. I came home, and I'm standing on the hillside thinking this. Okay, I haven't moved. I came home. I'm standing on the living room floor with my bologna sandwich, listening to Lynn down below play guitar as they worship. Now, did I walk to my bed and go to sleep and forget that I did that, and now I'm dreaming? Which is very cool that I'm thinking about my dream in my dream. And I'm thinking, no, this is much too complicated. I was just 3 seconds ago in my room with my eyes closed. And so I look down and I take some grass, because I figure, well, if this has got to be a dream. So I eat the grass and spit it out. I just put it in, start to chew it, and then spit it out because it's grass. And I reach over and take part of my arm and I pinch it really hard. And then I stop because it really hurts. I'm going, okay, I'm here. Now what am I doing here? And I look out, and it's down this field and down this little hill. There's all these kids playing and dogs running around and people, they're barbecuing hamburgers and hot dogs, and I can smell the food, and it's just awesome. I'm going, oh, I want to be down with people, and I want to eat some of the food, and I want the fun, and that's great. But then something, it was like this bitter taste came in my mouth about that was a group of people that separated themselves just for the sake of themselves. I didn't know why I felt bizarre until these people began to come towards me. And about 30 people are walking towards me up to this little mound around the corner. And as they passed by me, they said, you need to come with us. Nobody else will listen to what we have to say anymore. They've shut themselves off to God. And then they said, by the way, he's coming, and you need to be there when he comes. So I said, it sounds good to me. I want to be there. So I'm walking up going, this is so bizarre. I was just eating bologna. And I turned to somebody and says, I was just having a bologna sandwich. And they go, well, I don't know. I don't know where you were, but this is where we are. And I'm going, this is bizarre. And I get up there, and everybody gets in a circle. And I'm standing next to this lady over here, dressed in brown, and this guy on this side. I go, I was just having a bologna sandwich. Kind of looks at me like, what are you talking about? I was just in my apartment. I'm on a hill, and I don't know why. Did drugs come back? It's been a year. I think it'd be worked out of my system. And I seriously, I was scared because I literally was just there, and now I'm on a hillside with 30 people in a circle. I feel, is this a cult kind of a thing going on? And suddenly, they all start looking up, and I look up, and I go, oh my gosh. And I see Jesus coming down. And the circle is about from here to the soundboard like this. And he's coming down into the middle, which would plant him right about there. And his back is to me, and he's just coming down. He's just like he's being lowered. And I see there's bare feet. I see hair on his arms, because whatever he has, it comes down to here, and I can see, he's a little bit hairy, and the hair on his, going down his, the back of his head was fairly long. It wasn't super long, but it was at least down to the shoulders, dark brown, and he's facing that way. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I am so glad I'm here. If Jesus came, he's coming for me. This is so cool. I'm so glad I said yes to my sister. Even though sometimes she drove me crazy, I'm glad I said yes. I'm sitting there saying these things out loud, and everybody else is just stunned, and I just can't help myself because Jesus is here. And he's looking that way, and then suddenly I go, oh no. What if he's down here to judge? Because somebody said something, he's going to judge the body first, the church, and then the world. What if he's here to judge us? I know he's going to go through, and he's going to come around, and he's going to see, oh, DuPre, if we got to talk coming. This is matter of fact, I think I'm going to tell all your sins in front of everybody here. It's like, oh, this is just not going to be good. And so he starts looking at one person after the next. I'm going, okay, I hope he's not angry. And he gets to the person on the side. And I can now see the side of his face, and his eyes are scrunched up, and his cheekbone is up, and I'm going, oh no, he's angry. Oh, this is not good. He's just looking at, but every time he goes to one person to the next, they start beaming, and they just light up like, a Christmas tree, and I'm going, how can they do that when he's angry like that? But what happens is, as his face comes around, I realize it's not anger, it's absolutely the biggest smile I've ever seen. And he's got, his eyes are bright, his mouth is it's just like, like, wow. And he's looking around, I'm going, oh my gosh. It is, and the two words I describe it as wild love. Wild love. And his eyes were just blazing with affection. I'd never, ever seen anybody look at anybody that way, ever. And I know that in just a moment, he's going to look at me, and wild love is going to look at me. And I knew it was wild, and it almost shouted in my ear is wild love because, and I knew it was wild because the Lord was saying, no man tames my love. No one controls how I love you. Don't let anyone tell you you're loved until you do this, or you're only loved this far or this much. So it was wild. He was in control with how he was going to give out and lavishly give out his love. And so, timing-wise, what time is it? Okay, good. So he comes around, he gets to the person next to me, the lady in brown, and then he gets to me, and he just looks in my eyes. And he's just absolutely loving me, and I can feel it just permeate into me. And I can just tell that he's not looking at what I've done wrong. He's looking at this little person inside that said yes to him. And that's what he sees. And that's what he loves. And then he goes around the circle. Then at the end, he gets down on one knee, and he puts his arm out. He says, now, my beloved, come away with me. Now, I didn't fully understand that till a few years later when I literally bent my knee down and talked to this girl named Laura Rachesano and basically used the exact same language. And later that night, after I asked Laura to marry me, I felt the Lord say, remember when I did the same to you? I went, what? I said, remember when I bent down and asked you to come away with me? I went, oh, that's what that was. Oh. So people started to rise up. They're starting to go up. And this lady in brown next to me says, and I'm standing there going, please. And I feel like I'm like 2,000 pounds. Oh, I'm not going to rise up. And suddenly I start going up. I thought, this is so cool. Oh, and as people are rising up, I said, this is too much. This has got to be a dream. I reached down and took some more grass. I put it in my mouth, spit it out. And then I reached over and pinched the same spot again. And it really hurt because it still hurt from before. And I went, oh, okay, this has got to be real. And we started to rise up. And I remember getting up a mile. And the lady next to me in brown, it was like her string was cut. And she went falling to the ground. Now, as a little aside, I had told, I shared this dream with my mother short time later. Or this experience, I don't know if it was a dream or it was an experience, and my mother shared, she says, wait a minute, were you on a hillside? I said, yeah. Were there about 30 people in a circle? I said, yeah. Were there dogs barking in the background? Yeah. Was the lady dressed in brown? I said, yeah. She goes, I had that exact dream. I said, what? Except this is what it was. The Lord put this woman on my heart, but she wouldn't hear me. And she started to rise up, and she got about a mile into the air. I said, yes. And then she came suddenly crashing back down to earth. I said, yes. She says, yeah, I was on earth here watching the whole thing and praying for her. I said, what happened? She wouldn't hear, so she did church. But what held her, it turned out that her ankle had a rope attached to her living room furniture. And therefore, she decided that her lordship was what she owned, not who owned her. And so I said, I don't know that theology. All I know is that she went down, and there's a reason for it, but we just kept going up, and we got up 5 miles, and I'm sitting on this platform that's about half the size of this room, and all 30 people are there, and I'm sitting on it, and I'm sitting on the edge of the platform with my feet dangling down like this, except there was no floor there. They were just dangling down, and I just kind of going like this. I'm going, okay. Jesus says, I have to go back down to earth to take care of some business. I will be back. So he goes down, and I'm sitting there. This really is going somewhere. And suddenly, I feel, after a little bit of time, I feel someone sitting next to me. I go, oh, I wonder who's sitting next to me. And I look over, and I see bare feet and hair on the top of the feet, and I'm going, no. Jesus is sitting next to me. This can't be true. And I'm looking up, and I see his hands, and I see the tunic, the cloak, and whatever he's wearing, and it's like, oh my gosh, he's next to me. And I think, well, if this is the end times, he must be next to everybody. And I turn around, and I'm looking at everybody there, and there's no Jesus with them. They're all looking at me, and I can tell what they're thinking. I can hear what they're thinking, and they're all going, why is he with you? I can tell, why you? And I just look at them, I go, I don't know. And I'm hoping that he's not going to take his hand on my back and just go, boop. So I start holding on to the platform because I just don't want to be booped off. But I see his hands on his lap because I was always aware of men's hands, where they were. And so I say, well, his hands aren't there to hurt me. Okay, I'm going to be okay. So then I decide, I've been a Christian about a year, maybe a year and a half. I have to talk to Jesus. He's not talking to me. I'm going to talk to him. So he's just sitting beside me. His presence is with me. I then will pursue him, and I will talk to him about something, make myself sound like I know something. So I'm now ready to turn to Jesus, and I'm going to say this. Jesus, great job on Deuteronomy. That's a really good book. Good job. I got a lot out of it. I'm studying it right now. I had no clue what Deuteronomy was about, but I wanted to sound like I did. So it's just amazing how your heart is sometimes exposed with things. So I'm sitting there, and I go to look, and his face is right here. Now, would you come up here for a second? Well, yeah, okay, well, doesn't matter, but yeah. Now, if you're standing next to me here, and we can't get any closer, correct? Okay. Now, actually, let me do it this way. You be me, and I'll be Jesus. Okay. Turn and have your face pointed towards me. Okay. We're this far away, right? Jesus turns he's still sitting there, but he turns his chest, and he does this. Now turn. Okay. One is comfortable. The other is get out of my space. Okay, thank you. And I can see that Jesus is now turned, and he's right here. And wild love is boring in on me. And I can tell he's got this huge smile and these blazing eyes, and he's right here. And I'm going, okay, I don't think the Deuteronomy thing's going to work. He's not after Deuteronomy. So I'm going to say, Jesus, I really love you. And I was trying to think of something to say. And I get like this, and I see his eyes blazing, and I can't even look into his eyes. My head falls down, and I go, Jesus, and I drop my head, and I go, I am so sorry. I'm just so bad. And he takes my head and turns it around, just like my dad did. years later. He takes my head and turns it, and he forces me to look at him. Now, he has the back of my head like this. But the thing is, my chin is uncovered. So I just look at him and I go, oh, and I drop my head again. He takes his other hand and puts it under my chin and now holds me like this. I can't go anywhere. His big hands are around me. His old woodworking hands are around me. And I can feel the softness and yet the gruffness and strength of his hands on my face. And he points me and looks at me just like this. And now my eyes are here and his eyes are here. And when your eyes are that close, do that. Turn to someone and get this far away and look in their eyes for a second. Tell me. Don't get so close that it's blurry. Come on. I know girls are doing it, but some of the guys are having a real hard time doing this. Okay, question. Did you just finally catch what color their eyes were for the first time? Yeah. Does anybody see little red lines in their eyes? Yeah. So I'm sitting there like this, and he's looking at me, and I'm going, oh my gosh, his eyes are so deep and so brown. Yes, what, his eyes brown? Are you glad that his eyes are brown? Why, are your eyes brown? Oh, okay. Now, just because your eyes are blue or green does not mean that you cannot have Jesus within you. So I'm looking at him, and you know how the little edge around the eye, you sometimes see these little red lines? I'm looking at him, and I'm literally saying, I'm not saying it out loud, but I'm going, you got little red lines. Your beard, it's not trimmed. He didn't have one of these nice beards that just went down like this. It was just the hair grew, but it grew up into that little round mound up here. Just these little hairs are up here, and then the little hairs that grow down here. It wasn't trimmed. The little hairs grew down here, and I'm looking at the hairs. I'm looking at his eyes, and then finally it just overcomes me that he is looking at me with his gaze, and I don't know what to say. I just said one more time, Lord, I'm so sorry. He goes, shh. I love you. And I go, I know. I love you. He says, okay. I love you. And I just shut up for a moment and just took it in. I went, oh. In my heart, I go, I think I'm getting it. And he goes, you need to know that for what you're going to do with your life. I said, okay. He goes, you need to know that I love you. I said, okay. And he takes my head and he puts it on his chest. And my ear went right above his heart, and I began to hear this heartbeat. And I knew he did that so that I could hear his heartbeat beating for me. And he's holding me. And then suddenly his arms just draped around my shoulders and back, and he just rocked me. And I'd never, ever been rocked like that, never been held like that. His hands were safe. His strength made me secure. His love began to root into my heart. And he goes, shh, I love you. I love you. I love you. And he's just whispering over me. And I start to weep, and I start to weep. And this ball of fire goes from his heart, shoots up, hits my chest. I fall backwards, and I'm suddenly in my apartment. I'm back in my apartment, and I look over, and there's my bed, and I fall on my bed, and I start to weep, and I start to weep, and I start to weep. And I'm now 20, 21 years old, and I'm weeping, and I'm weeping. And I just don't know what to do with all the things that I'm feeling. But I'm just weeping. And I keep crying, and suddenly I realize I'm on my lunch break. I really did. I was like, how much time do I have in my lunch break? But I couldn't stop crying, so I just kept crying, and it was like, just shut up and cry until you're done, because I never cried. I basically stopped crying when I was about 8 or 9 years old. When Dad, when finally things were done, I didn't cry anymore. And so I stuffed it, and as an 11-year-old, I began to get horrible migraine headaches. And to the point where I'd get 2 to 3 a week, each one making me physically sick. And I just stuffed everything, and they were trying to get me to have expression and cry and talk, and and I was shut down internally. I didn't know it. From 8 years old on, I didn't cry anymore. And people around me that I knew would die, and I go, oh, that's too bad. And I wouldn't cry. And so here I am weeping and weeping and weeping and weeping, and I'm laying on the bed. And I finally get to the end of my weeping, and I look at my pillow, and it's soaked. So I lift the pillow up, and the bottom of the pillow starts to drip water. I go, oh, that's gross. I cried tears and snot through my pillow on the other side of so I pick it up, and I look down at my mattress. I go, I wonder how, and I push my hand down on my mattress. I can still remember doing this. I pushed my hand down on my mattress, and all these water and bubbles started shooting up between my fingers. I had cried through my pillow, soaked my pillow, and soaked my mattress with my tears. I'm thinking, I just thought there, I said, 21 years of weeping, 21 years of pain. I think I just cried it out. And I remember getting up out of bed, and I washed off, and hardly any time had passed at all. The only time that had really passed was my crying time, which then took me to the end of my lunch hour, and I got back in time. Just a basket case, people asking if I was sick, and I just said, I don't remember what I said, actually. But after that, about a week later, someone said, hey, you're going to your dad's this weekend? With Christmas, it's coming to Christmas time. Hey, you're going to see your dad over Christmas? And every time someone brought up my dad's name, it was like, don't talk about my dad. I don't want to think about my dad. I don't want to go there. And this time it went, oh, Dad. My dad. And suddenly I saw him in a concentration camp. I saw him in a prison being abused. And then the Lord said, you've prayed for compassion, so I'm going to show you your father as at your age and what he went through. It's like, oh. So I started to have compassion for my dad. And so then I prayed again and asked the Lord, please allow me the grace to forgive him. And I thought I went far enough. It took some years later before the other experience of doing it face to face. But I walked away from this thing with this wild love of God right there. And then 20 years later, here it is, my father holding me with the same hands on the same side, with his left hand around me, his right hand on my chin, kissing me to convince me of his love for me. And I'm thinking, as my dad is holding me, I'm going to just be honest, and I'm thinking, as my father's holding me, I'm going, I remember this position. I remember Jesus holding me. I remember his kissing me. And then he turns to the doctor and says, this is my son. I love him. He's great. And I'm thinking, this is what Jesus wanted me to know. Why? Because that's what he wants you to know. He's holding your head, looking at you with wild love. There is no constraint. Let me put it this way. No one controls how God feels about you. I don't care what preacher ever said, if you, or when you don't, it grieves the heart of God. You know what? I'm sorry. God's a big guy. If we're so easily offended, because we're so easily offended, we think God is easily offended. You got to work pretty hard to offend God. You have to be pretty conscious of it and intentional about it. But your own weakness and your own falling, here's what happens when you do that. And tell me if this is true. When you make a mistake, does your heart go, yes, I got God with that one? Or does your heart go, oh, why did I do that? Which one does it, number one or number two? Why is that? Because something in your heart said yes to him a long time ago. And every time your weakness takes center stage, God doesn't look at that. He looks at the yes in your heart. He goes, oh, Chris, I see that. I see that you didn't want to do that. I see you didn't want to say that. You didn't want to feel that. But here's the thing, Chris. I see the yes in your heart that says yes to me all the time. And I love that. And I know your weakness. And I have then Psalm 103, pity, which is just understanding. It just means understanding. I have understanding and compassion for you because I know your weakness. And I know that your heart of hearts, you didn't want to do that. I know in your heart of hearts you didn't want to respond that way. And so this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to love on you. And I'm going to put my ear down and just go ahead. Say I'm sorry. Oh, Lord, I've sinned against heaven and against you. Oh, good. I'm no longer worthy. No, don't go there. Don't go there. I sinned against heaven. That's all I needed to hear. Okay, Michael, bring the robe and bring the ring. Because let's put it on Chris, because he came back again. Yes, yes, yes. I told you the yes in his heart. I told you the yes in her heart. I told you the yes in his heart. I told you what they really want. I told you the kind of life they really want to live. The kind of life you really want to live is the one where you see him more clearly and you become the one you see. That's why I'm telling you these. Sometimes it might be to you, oh, he's telling a silly little story. It's not a silly little story. If by the Spirit of God, because it's the Spirit of God in 2 Corinthians 3, it's the Spirit of God that gives you liberty to do what? To see God. It takes God to see God. It takes a revelation from God to have a revelation of God. Therefore, when you're sitting here, my heart is constantly praying and interceding, going, let him see you. Let him see you. Let him see you. When I leave, it's not the words that I've said. I don't care if you go, oh, that was so eloquent. I love this. Or, oh, it's bad. But if you come away with eyes glazing and gazing at you, if you come away from the week going, I don't remember a thing he said, and what was his name? I don't care about that. But if you come away with, you know what? I just know he loves me more. Something convinced me that he's looking at me and smiling. And he wants me to see him smiling so that I can become like him. So I don't really care about all the other stuff. And where that guy came again, the older gray-haired guy, what was his name? Dick? Rick? Chris? Yeah, good. Well, I don't know what happened. All I know is that I know that he loves me more. So do me a favor, just one more time. Put your hand on your heart a second. Papa, we want to go deeper. We want these roots to go further and further in. It's not a one-time teaching that we be grounded and rooted and grounded in love. That's not a teaching. That's a life revelation, and then a life experience, and go on to a lifestyle. And so, Lord, I just pray that you would come to each one here this morning and that you would again penetrate deeply into their heart and that they would have a revelation even deeper of your affection for them. Not some general, I love the church. We need that. But using their name, using their face, using them and knowing the experience they have in their own family and their own life, that you would come and you'd reveal another facet of your affection for them. And we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay, here's the deal. Ready? It is 1 minute to 11. 2 minutes. I'm going to start at 11:15. So everybody be back ready to go by 11:15 so I can get you out at 12. Okay? And here's the deal. If everybody's not here, the last one to come in is when I start 45 minutes. So if you